Hello, YouTubes! Welcome back to James Recommends. This week, I want to talk about a game called In Between. It's a game about the stages of grief and sort of accepting your own mortality. And on that alone, I wanted to talk about it because I feel like whether or not it's an successful attempt, we should expand what we talk about and sort of the ideas that pervade our culture that we address within games. This attempt to me is somewhat successful. Some of the moments are very powerful. It loses me a bit on some of the gameplay. So this is a game that's fundamentally a puzzle platformer. I mean, that is what it is, straight up. I'm going to give you the bad first, and then I'm going to give you the good and the interesting things that made me want to talk about it on the show. First off, it feels quintessentially like a small team that didn't get to playtest much with a large audience and maybe got very used to playing their game, because this is one of those puzzle platformers that is completely unforgiving. This is one of those ones where a pixel of difference will spell life and death. And what's worse is the checkpoint system. This is a game that will teach you how important it is to have a decent checkpointing system, because when a pixel of difference to the left or right means dying, having no checkpoints in every stage becomes an exercise in frustration, because also a puzzle platformer is about thinking through the puzzles, not necessarily the action of doing them over and over again. And this will force you to go back and complete the puzzles that you've already completed in that stage up until the very end, so you can get through that one last puzzle that you screwed up on. And there's a lot of opportunity to sort of make a reflex mistake, because it's, for how finicky it is, the controls are just not tight enough. I'm sure you'll see this, but it's a really good lesson in knowing what your game caters to, where the core engagement is, because the core engagement is not in repeating these puzzles, and making sure that you focus on that core engagement and streamline out anything that doesn't fit that core engagement, which in this case is repeating the same mechanical play over and over and over again. So that part, there are some cool puzzles. If you like puzzle platformers, there's some neat stuff here, but just know that's what you're getting into. That stuff really, I feel like, held this game back. On the other hand, I love the core concept. There are some excellent moments of sort of mechanics as metaphor here. Sometimes a little too on the nose, but they do try a great deal to encapsulate each of these stages of grief and stages of accepting mortality in the play of the game itself, right? There's a lot of things like having to confront what's actually going on. There's a lot of sections where there's a creeping fog which crosses the screen, and if you're looking away from it, it's slowly catching up to you, right? It's this ominous thing, and if it catches up to you, you die. But if you look at it, if you look straight towards it, it backs off, right? And you can hold it back, and you can deal with it so long as you're actually willing to face it. And I thought things like that were actually really cool, really interesting, worth looking at as a designer. I had an issue with how death is done in this game, because the core game is about coming to accept death, and I couldn't decide. I was trying to figure this out in my mind, because you die a ton, as I said, in this game, and eventually I became numb to dying in the game, and I couldn't decide if that was brilliant or terrible, because in one way it totally conflicts with the message, because you've trivialized death, right? On the other hand, I sort of understand if you have to deal with it every day, I could see it becoming something that is just background noise, that is something that just become numb to. And so really interesting. I can't decide like which side of the line I feel like that falls on, but for all of you, I think it's an interesting thing to look at. And in general, I am being a little bit hard on this crew, this team that's doing this, because I think it's a bold experiment and I think it's worth looking at, and I would love to see them get more sales just for what they're trying to do. That said, with the caveat of know what you're going into, know that it is a punishing game, and that a lot of the time you'll just want to see where the story is going and not be able to because you're stuck on very small mechanical errors in the game. If you can deal with that, or if you're particularly good at these type of games and this is your thing, well then this week, James recommends In Between. See y'all next week.